MSD podcast, Brave Actions Taken. I received this account of a situation faced and dealt with by a former member, referred to as X in this podcast, that had moved up through the ranks, passing testing phases some years back. He was a fit, strong, keen, dedicated exponent that proved himself well under training and in testing. And this outcome of the following account of when he had to use his skills in a real-life situation is testament to his mental toughness and his skills, competency, and capability. X had relocated overseas some decades ago, and on the day in question had been at a shooting range with a friend. Returning to the friend's house, they had just got out of the vehicle and heard the sound of a window being smashed at the side of the friend's house. X told his friend to wait in the vehicle and keep the firearms secure. Moving directly to where the sound of the breaking glass at the side of the house came from, he identified a lot of his friend's property that had been removed from the house and was lined up outside. The window that had been smashed was a large sunroom window, and the stolen goods had been removed from the house via the broken window. Before he knew it, he was face to face with the offender, who appeared via the broken sunroom window. The perp immediately went on the offensive, threatening X, telling him he had a knife in his bag and that he had aides and two mates inside the house. He must have perceived X as a formidable threat, and when he went for the knife in his bag, X closed on him, seized and securing him, preventing him from being able to draw the knife from his bag. While X had the perp controlled and contained, and the perp was struggling, from somewhere he managed to arm himself with a screwdriver, and it was at this stage X realized this perp was not going to give in easily, and he needed to disarm him. Maintaining the secure seizure status on the perp, X redirected him by bums rushing him, turning him around and away from him, also turning the screwdriver holding hand away from him, forcing him into the corner of the brick wall of the house. The perp continued to struggle violently to get away and to redirect the screwdriver towards X, so he leg stamped the perp's closest leg below the knee joint that was fully loaded, weight-bearing, and that dropped the perp face first into the concrete path, incapacitating him by destroying his knee joint. X had from the outset identified that this perp looked deranged and goal-driven, and even after not being able to regain his footing or escape, he maintained his grip on the screwdriver and was trying to stab and slash at X with it from the ground. Being well trained on how to deal with armed violent foes, X targeted the arm and hand holding the screwdriver by heel stomping and hard boots toe spiking at the weapon holding hand and forearm. He even used a both boots heels bronco stomp when the perp from the ground tried to ground move towards him, combined with a stabbing and slashing action at him from the ground up. These hard boots, spiking, stamping and stomping counteractions added to the perp's list of injuries that by now included arm and hand injuries that forced the release of the weapon, and X kicked it out of the perp's recovery range and made sure it was secured. He now no longer could get his knife from the bag that was secured out of his reach, and he had lost the screwdriver that he was using as a weapon. The perp was still screaming violent threats and attempting to lash out, now unarmed, from the ground, even though one leg was completely destroyed and there was no way he could recover his footing. He was trying to crawl towards X using one hand and one leg and lash out from the ground, as well as trying to get hold of X by his leg. The objective of X had been to not only stop the perp in his tracks, but also to prevent him escaping by incapacitating him to the point of not being able to get away before the police arrived. With this violent goal and drug-driven crim still doing everything possible to assault X and possibly get away, and with the possibility of the AIDS threat being true, X made sure he used the soles of his boots to keep out of the downed perp's reach and reduce the likelihood of any injuries to himself. X could hardly believe that this perp with a shattered knee joint and badly injured arm and hand as well as the head impact injuries as a result of the wall and the concrete path contact impact was still trying to assault him, and how he had to use hard boots, high-level force toe spiking, and heel stomping to keep him down and away. He was even trying to use his one uninjured hand to get up on one knee with the other being destroyed. Then, what X thought were two mates of the perp come around the corner towards him. He had remained ready and prepared for this after the perp had told him that he had two others with him. X immediately aggressively closed on them, and fortunately they identified themselves as neighbours, wondering what all the screaming and yelling was about. X believed it must have been the result of being in a drug-affected state that enabled the perp to continue and not surrender to the pain of his injuries. It didn't take long for multiple police vehicles and police officers to arrive on the scene. They took the criminal into custody and advised X that he had just been released from prison and was a well-known armed robber with a record of using violence against his victims. When the perp saw the police arriving on the scene, he was yelling to them to get X away from him. X explained to the police how he was trying to protect himself and stop this crim from getting away with his friend's property, and that the damage and injuries to the perp were through him having to defend himself in self-defense against a violent thug that, when even badly injured, would not stop trying to do him bodily harm. Police officer told X he was very fortunate that he could deal with this violent criminal, as he was well known for aggravated armed hold-ups where he would use violence to get what he wanted with no care or respect for the victims. The perp had just picked the wrong house, with the homeowner having a friend like X on hand that day that was highly trained in mill self-defense and mill CQC.